Hello, beautiful and powerful women. Welcome to Susan Unleashed. This podcast is for any woman who wants to live a gorgeous life on her terms and who knows that not only is being a woman enough, it is the key to everything. I'm your host, Susan Elizabeth, certified professional coach, #1 best-selling author, and Energy Leadership Index master practitioner. I fiercely support women who are passionate about elevating their lives while embracing their truest selves. Are you ready to unleash your power? What if I told you that you do not have to choose between being successful, powerful, and feminine? That's right. You heard me say that. Let me say it again. You do not have to choose between being feminine, powerful, and wildly successful. So a lot of our society has really taught us to do, to perform, to achieve, to go after, to work really hard. And especially us as women, like we have to work like almost twice as hard to prove ourselves and prove our worth and prove our value and be rewarded. And the doing gets rewarded in our society. And none of this is our fault. This is just the way most of us have been raised. But it's coming back and really knowing that you're high value because you embody who you are and you know that you're worthy. And you have that deep relationship with yourself that you've developed and you really honor her. You honor yourself, right? So let me just start with a little story. So once upon a time, a long, long time ago, I actually used to think that being feminine in business was a weakness. So I did everything that I could to emulate men. I worked really hard. I put on the power suits and I would man up. And I used to think that being feminine wouldn't be taken seriously. I thought in my own mind that it wouldn't be perceived as powerful. It wouldn't be perceived as professional. I also thought that if I was in my feminine, I would be perceived as maybe being irrational, too emotional, reactive, and maybe not perceived as strong enough. And I wore that for decades. And I can tell you this, it brought me to the point where I was sick, mentally, emotionally, physically, because the body really just communicates out what is going on in the mindset. And I was so unhappy. I was alone. I was afraid, but yet I had this really tough, controlling exterior. And it took decades for me to relearn and unlearn what our society had taught. And I was even raised to just work hard and get your education. And my parents, bless them. Thank goodness for that, because I have worked really hard in my life and it's taken me far. But I finally got to the point where I realized this does not serve me anymore. It is not authentically who I am as Susan, as a woman. So then I had to do a lot of work on myself to come back to myself about redefining success from the feminine perspective. And I had to go through and think about the women out in the world, like who were my role models. My mother was very powerful, and she was feminine, but like really powerful role models out in the world. I think of Beyonce. Very feminine, very powerful, also vulnerable, not afraid to use her voice. Literally, she's a singer, but not afraid to use her voice for the betterment and her authenticity. I think about Brene Brown. I think about Jennifer Lopez. I think about Oprah, Rihanna, even Cleopatra. We go way back in time. She was very feminine and very powerful. And I even think about Mother Nature. Just think Mother Nature she's soft, she's beautiful, she's colorful, she's flowing, she goes through her seasons, she has her cold, she has her warm, but she can also be wild and torrid and explosive. You think of hurricanes and tornadoes and, volcanoes, storms, and then with that comes a cleansing, and then there's a stillness, and then the sunrise, and then the sunset. So when I think of that, I actually used all of that to help me on my path of coming back to myself and really getting to know myself as a woman. And I learned that when I started understanding my masculine that I had so well developed in the business world after decades in it and being a leader in a leadership position in my corporate career, when I started really coming back to myself and living in my feminine and really understanding the feminine, how to be authentic in my feminine energy, powerful women, we are in touch with ourselves. We are unshakable. We are unstoppable. And we know ourselves. And I have this deep relationship with myself, which allows me to have a deep relationship with others that I work with and others in my personal and life. And that's when I really found true love in my life after a failed marriage, a failed second marriage, which ended in annulment very fast, and many other relationships, which really they're not failures at the end of the day. So I want to talk about really painting a picture for you about really stepping in and owning my feminine strength and living in my feminine and being successful from that, because we have these deep relationships with ourselves. And I have learned how to have these really strong boundaries. And I've really come to know my worth and I know my value. Like there is one me in this world and it is there to serve a purpose. It's to add value. It's to bring my gifts and talents into the world. It's to influence. I've learned the power of my influence. I've learned how to protect myself and I've learned how to take care of myself. I have my own back and I know how to reach out and ask for help. Finally, because I never know how to receive. I had such a hard time receiving, and that is the feminine. It's being able to also receive. And I like to talk about having that masculine structure because I love structure. It's just who I am. But then having that feminine flow and freedom within that structure. And that feels good for me. I have found my way where I can now show up for life, who I am as a woman, who I am as a leader, who I am as a wife, and a daughter, and a friend, and all of that. So I just want to say that none of this is our fault. If you're in a place where you might be struggling with really being your authentic truth, in your truth as a woman, as a feminine woman, and being wildly successful and powerful, because society has really valued the masculine and the masculine traits, especially in business. But that's changing now. You can have that structure of the masculine and allow it to really be that container, that outline, but you can live in the freedom and live in the feminine with ease and flow and having that freedom within that. And it's a really, really beautiful place because when you embody the feminine and you allow the masculine, within you to be present, and then you marry the two together and you can step in and out, it's really like this magnetic place. And it's something very special and it's pretty rare. Not a lot of women that I've witnessed know how to do this very well. And really the feminine is just this beautiful, beautiful gift. It's this presence. And when you can presence in it, femininity is power itself. And I just want to say that it's a real power. And just never underestimate the power of your feminine because it can be just like Mother Nature. It can be wild. It can be like Beyonce whipping out a song, using her voice, speaking her message from her feminine point of view, using her gifts and talents, putting that into the world, being a businesswoman, being a singer, being a leader. And, there's this seductiveness to it. It's this deep instinct and intuition that we have within us that, think about this. The times in your life when you've ignored your gut intuition, when you've ignored your instinct, that's when you've always looked back and going, I should have done it. I should have listened to what my gut or my heart was telling me. And all those times when we didn't, we've never regretted it. It's the other times when you have the shoulds, shitting all over the place, the shoulds, we've gone back and that's really use that as a guide. Listen to that. Let it be your lesson and serve you. Really listen to your heart, listen to your intuition, to your gut space, and allow your head to serve you and your intuition. Because when you do this, you are more powerful. You are more decisive. You're more inspiring and irresistible even. So I think when I really learned how to start living more heart-based and intuitive-based, because I've always had intuition and it's been a very, very strong thing that I have felt in my life. When I learned how to live heart-based, it was so much easier for me to finally sink down into, because the intelligence is in the heart. There's power in the heart. There's such it's its own wisdom. And I use my mind to serve my heart. And there's this beautiful presence. There's this beautiful powerness within the heart. And it has this knowingness that the head does not have. And think of the times when you have to think things through, and there's a space for thinking. But when you go to your heart, it serves you and it's never wrong. It's a really, really powerful place. And it's just reconnecting with it, because so many of us have lost contact with this. We've lost, in the world that we live in the society we live in, we have not been able to receive very well. So let me give you an example. So for example, in business, when I go ask my teams for ideas and input, I sit back and I listen. I go out, I want to allow, I want to receive that information. I want to feel what it feels like in my gut. I want to gather all of the information, and it flows in. I'm receiving it. I can kind of process it. I can sit with it. I can sit in it. And then when I feel like have enough information, using my knowledge, using my wisdom, using my experience, and using my intuition and my heart, I then make a decisive decision and I move on and I go on to the next thing. So I think it's really, really being what I call feminine and successful. It's all of those things, but it's really remembering to come back to yourself and having this relationship with yourself, getting to know yourself at that deep level that's required for you to really be connected to it. And then to live in choice. And with that awareness, it's living in choice. Because when I do that, I get to embrace all parts of me, the masculine aspects, the feminine aspects that I live in, but I can step into the masculine aspects and I get to be authentically myself as me. So I just want to share with you some ways to live within and embody your feminine power and success. So first of all, design yourself into your day, into your week, and even your month. Another one is really embody and embrace receiving. Super important. Another one is really letting go of the need to control everything. If you're anything like me, being a strong, powerful woman, I love to control everything, but underneath the control was actually fear. And fear was running a lot of my life. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of not having it all together, the fear of losing control. And then really quit emulating men. If any of you are doing this, it's time to stop manning up. And it's understandable if you are doing this. I just want to bring awareness to this, but it can be exhausting, always manning up, emulating, not living as your true, authentic self. You are here to be you and only you as a woman, or if you identify as being a woman. And then another one is really knowing you do not have to prove yourself to anyone or anything. And really think about that. I was always running around, running and doing and chasing and delivering and working hard. But underneath that, I was running from myself because I was trying to prove myself to everyone and everything outside of myself. And when I finally learned how to walk back to myself and embrace myself, embrace my worth, embrace my value, and learn that I don't have to prove myself to anyone or anything. Just me being here, I am worthy. I was born, I am here, and I have something so valuable to add to the world, and that is myself. And then another one is slow down. Slow down and really stop. Like, how many times do we always have to hurry up and get busy? But it's time to relax, to slow down and relax and come back to yourself, connect to the present moment, and connect to your senses. And being in your body. Another one that I always like to recommend to women is to go out in nature and be around nature and be in your heart and be in your intuitive space. And use your head as a support system. Use your head as a check and balance. And have fun and play. That is another really important thing, because when you can be with your girlfriends, when you can be doing the things that you love to do, body movement, whatever that looks like, it just feels good. And last, do what you enjoy and love yourself. So important. You can be so much more successful, feminine, and power if you love yourself. How many of us criticize ourselves and it does not serve us? It really comes back to being, honoring, loving yourself, and being in love with yourself, because the more you can do that, the more you have that's available to the world. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I look forward to seeing you in our next one. All right, everybody. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would leave me a review or share it with someone else who may enjoy it too. To stay connected with me, please head on over to SusanElizabethCoaching.com and make sure that you sign up for my tips on how to live an unleashed life full of passion and purpose. Until next time, go live an unleashed life.